the perfect time to talk about things that are extremely esoteric, because the consensus reality that is part of a society that is generally intact, that consensus reality is very strong. And even if you are trying to move away from it, it's so strong that it will be very difficult for you to effectively move away from it while you're in it. But when that consensus reality is fragmenting, it's much easier for you to make excursions outside of it, because it's not, the gravity of that reality is not holding you as tightly. So just as there is gravity that is holding us like this, there's also subtle gravity that keeps people circulate or cycling, orbiting around whatever the source of that gravity is, whether it is a czar or a government or a philosophy like communism or any kind of ism. Wherever that nugget of solidity is located, that things are circulating around, that's the thing that is going to continue trying to draw you in that direction. So Gurdjieff made it a point to teach some of the things that he is most known for, like the Enneagram, for example, during this period when he could teach it at a time that the consensus reality of the Russian of Russianness was being fragmented, and eventually became so fragmented that it fell completely to pieces and is only now slowly recovering. So now is a particularly good time to try to be exploring non-standard realities, because there's so many consensus realities. In fact, probably the biggest consensus reality today is the not really consensus reality of the internet, because it is something that such a large number of people around the world are connecting into. So it's actually a consensus reality that in some ways is much denser than the previous ones were. Because the previous, you had the czar, the flag, the Mother Russia or whatever, or Mother India or the Vaderland or whatever it is. Things that were images that everyone probably who had those images, they had slightly different images. Because those images were generally, okay, you had the photo, you had an image of the czar on the coin or whatever, but the majority of these images were being generated internally, and they were all different from person to person because they were being generated internally. Now, a vast majority of the images that we have are being generated externally. They're still only images. They're still only photographs. They're still only sound recordings. They're still things that have been taken at a particular time and space with a particular method, a particular causation, and for the purpose of producing a particular effect. But now they're much denser than they used to be, because they have been generated in the five-element world, in the five Mahabhuta world, instead of in the interior reality where they could be less five Mahabhutaized and more part of the five Tanmata, more living in the world of sound, space, form, taste, and odor, the more refined world. So things are even less refined than as if they could have been. Even less refined, but yes, just when we thought they couldn't be any denser and duller and stupider, they can become denser, duller, and stupider, because we've decided to take these images that together become a consensus reality and externalize them further. So it's like we had an astral reality already. It was a perfectly good astral reality. There was nothing wrong with it. It wasn't broken. There was no need to fix it. But we generated a new astral reality that is now a fake ersatz human astral reality that is a reflection of the astral reality, which is a reflection of the human reality. So now the reflection is looking at the reflection, and it's one of those two mirrors pointed at one another kind of thing that are regressing into infinity in both directions, but not just both directions, in an infinity of directions, because of the fact that there's so many people doing so many, looking at what's looking at, who's looking at their, and it's multiplied by the billions of people who are on the internet and who are connecting, who were never on it until recently but are connecting enthusiastically, even as we speak. And this is everywhere. This is everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. In the Amazon jungle, in the far-off places of the desert where you think you would never be. They're everywhere. People are connecting to that consensus reality. But it's fragmented. It's externalized. And so this is a perfect moment to try to, even while, if you're going to be part of the modern world at all, you have to have some at least vague awareness of the internet, even if you don't spend any time there, because everyone else is on the internet. You can't escape the internet. But you can choose how far you want to stick yourself into the internet, and this may require some experimentation. But how far you need to have your avatar present there without it taking over and then you simply becoming a servant of it. This has always been the problem, with fame especially, with everything else, but especially with fame. That where is that point where once you go beyond, then your persona takes over and you're simply being dragged behind it, instead of you having some influence over what's going on with your persona. That used to be a matter of just the people who had enough fame to be worried about that. But now it could be you are minding your own business and you're walking down the street and who knows what happens to you, but somebody catches it on the cell phone and then they post it on the internet and all of a sudden it becomes viral. And within a few months, 1 billion people have seen you doing whatever it was you were doing.
Slip on a banana peel.
Exactly. It could be any of those things, you see. And now everybody, and then it was so funny that everybody wants to know who you are, and then all of your info is suddenly, everybody, people in Botswana are talking about it to people in New Guinea, who are talking about it to people in Tierra del Fuego. And all you did was slip on the banana peel or step in the dog poop or whatever it was, and you had forget the intention, you had no idea that this was going to happen. But it did. So, what does this mean to purifying the 5 elements? It means that things are more complicated on the one hand, but they're simpler on the other. More complicated because there are a lot more different directions in which the prana can get fasaud, sorry, that's a Hindi word, can get entrapped, can get tangled up in, can get knotted up in. So many different places where your attention can get trapped. But if you're able to, and this is why pratyahara, keeping your sense organs, generally speaking, inside and trying to avoid letting them go outside except when they need to. This is why it was always important, but it's so much more important nowadays, because that allows you at least to maintain what we hope will be sufficient perspective to keep you from even turning your awareness in certain directions. I am going to stop there for the moment, simply because I see that I've been jawboning for an hour and 40 minutes. No, an hour and 7 minutes. Any questions? Observations, comments, criticisms, witticisms? Apparently not. Okay. Yes?
So, I think Vimalananda said you work with one specific element, didn't he say? And to focus on fire?
Well,
because it's fast or something like that?
Vimalananda, being a practical guy, said, okay, you have the 5 elements. You're going to work by purifying the 5 elements. Generally speaking, it's good to purify all 5 elements. But specifically, in his opinion, it was important it's sort of like you want to have, suppose you want to, if you're living in a three-dimensional reality, you want to understand both horizontality and verticality and expansivity. So it's very useful to concentrate on one of these elements. He said, generally speaking, trying to concentrate on the earth element as a force for transformation is only going to be useful if you're going to live for 10,000 years or something, because it's a very slow-moving thing, and having it work on transforming you is going to work at the rate that it transforms itself, which is very slowly. And if you try to use the akasha, the element of space, that also, and simply listen to the Shabda Brahman, that also is very good, but the space element is so rarefied that it may also be difficult for you to work with. So he was of the opinion that you should work with one of the three elements that are actually themselves moving, themselves transformative, themselves willing, able, and open to being altered. Those being, of course, water, fire, and air. And air, of course, appears in the human organism as prana, and so there are ways to work with the prana, and we will do some prana circulating exercises for this very purpose, to encourage the prana to circulate nicely, because simply having the prana circulate nicely encourages the nadis to get purified. And if you work with the water, this means, generally speaking, that you are working with some sort of alchemical processes, literal alchemy, or you're working with internal alchemy, meaning purifying the internal juices, the six tastes that Ayurveda has, and their relations to the emotions and the food that we eat, and of course, because emotion in this case is reflective of the moon, and because the moon is reflective of it reflects the sun. If we take the sun to represent the supreme reality, the moon represents the human ability to reflect the supreme reality, the mind in all of its manifestations. And Vimalananda was fond of saying that you can move towards the supreme reality either by saying, "Thy will be done," or "My will be done." My will be done is the right nostril. Me, I will act. The right nostril is all about acting as an individual. And the left nostril is all about receiving and being receptive. And that's the "Thy will be done." The aspect of bhakti comes from the left nostril. So bhakti meaning devotion. And so devotion is really the best and certainly the easiest, if possibly not the fastest method, except for some very selective individuals, not the fastest method to move in the direction of purifying the water element. And then we have the fire element, which was, and if it was good enough for the rishis, it's good enough for me. That's what I have to say about the fire element. And the fire element is good because the fire element is in the job, its job is transforming things. So you put things into it and they're transformed. You don't have to wait to see whether that's going to happen. You can see it right in front of you. Of course, the challenge with the fire element is that you will occasionally get burned. So you should be prepared for that. With the water element, you will occasionally drown. With the air element, you'll occasionally get blown away. So any practice that you undertake, you can, unless you're already a brilliant and completely transformed kind of person, there's going to be a process of, there will be a relationship created. The relationship already exists between you and all these elements, but now it's, up till now, it's the relationship that was built into you as an organism, which is, it's the relationship that is my senses, my sense organs going out there, identifying what's happening with the 5 elements, bringing back in, and on the basis of that information, having the 5 elements inside my body do whatever it is they need to do in order to adapt to whatever's happening externally. Whereas now, it would be a matter of, okay, I want to go beyond the 5 elements to the supreme reality that's beyond them, and I have requested one of these 5 elements to assist me in that process, and then you are establishing a relationship with that element, and you should be prepared, A, for all the other elements to get jealous and say, wait a minute, it's favoritism, what about the rest of us? And sometimes they might not cooperate as much, and then you have to, of course, be nice to them occasionally also, and when they have a birthday, bring them a cake or something like that, even while you're spending the rest of your time with this other element that you're. And then you have to explain, it's not that I'm more fond of this element than the rest of you, but we're working together now, and then that will further cement this relationship that's between you and this other element. And then, of course, that element might get a swelled head and start to think, now I'm the very special element. And then we have to understand that, in fact, I'm working with you, but you're only as a representative of the Tanmatra that is behind you, who is a representative of Tamas, who's a representative of Ahankar, who's a representative of Mahat, who's a representative of Prakriti, who's a representative of Purush. So, not to rain on your parade or anything, but you're not quite as, you're very special to me right now, but I'm going to, at some point, it's going to be, all things will be over, it'll be adios, and we'll go our own separate ways. Bye. So, but you, practically speaking, want to select one of these to work with, and then you establish a relationship with it. And if it's with the fire, you should be aware that sometimes the fire and you will be, it's like any relationship. You will be on there will be a good rapport, you'll be on an even keel. Sometimes it will be the fire saying tomato, and you will say tomato, and there'll be a misunderstanding. And you have to also always remember that the fire is a natural force of nature, an F of N. And as a force of nature, you can't get too you can't anthropomorphize it too much. You can anthropomorphize it a little, because that's what humans do. They're anthropomorphizing everything. But you can't push any further than that, because it's still a force of nature. If I ever forget this, I have this to remind myself that I got from the Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. I'm very fond of that volcano and of the goddess who lives there, Pele. But this was a good reminder that she is still a volcano, and there is a certain limit to which you I as a protoplasmic human being can interact with a volcano. So, as long as that is understood by both parties, then something positive can occur. So, that's what we're aiming to have happen.
Immediately, you caught the eye.
Uh-huh. So, the nice thing is that nature is always awake and alert, and always in the mood to send messages when she's in the mood to send messages. So, this was a very convenient exclamation point for the comment that was being made at that time. Anyway, we have a little bit of time left before 12 noon. So, may I encourage everyone to sit quietly, close your eyes, take your awareness down to the center of the earth, and take your awareness up to some appropriate point in the sky. Let's just say the sun for right now, since it is, after all, during the day and almost noon. Human beings have been evolved for the purpose of permitting the Supreme Reality a clear passage all the way down to the center of the earth element, which for us is the center of the earth. On a different planet, it might be somewhere different. But for us, it's the center of the earth. And just like that Trishula, there should be a nice, not rigid, not flopping all around in all directions, but a nice, calmly stable, open channel in which there is a flow of awareness between the center of the earth and the center of the sun, so they can commune together. We then, as human beings, are doing our jobs, which is encouraging the celestial and the terrestrial to meet within us, with us acting as a bridge between the two. So that alignment is happening as we breathe in. That alignment is happening as we breathe out. As a general rule, and this is very general, it depends a lot on you, but as a general rule, the incoming breath is encouraging us to be better centered in our bodies, and the outgoing breath is encouraging us to be less centered in our bodies. So the incoming breath, for right now at least, let's move down and connect to the center of the earth, and the outgoing breath, let us move up and connect to the center of the cosmos, for which right now we're focusing on as if the center of the cosmos was the sun. It is the center of the solar system. So for the earth, the center of the cosmos is, effectively speaking, the sun. As you inhale, you can feel as if you are yourself offering nourishment to the earth element, because she's done so much for us. She keeps us tied down to her so we do not have to worry about flying off into space. We pee all over her, we poop all over her, she doesn't care. She is the Ur-mother, the ultimate in motherhood. And then, as we exhale, we leave the nest and allow the awareness to rise upwards, disconnecting from all the five elements, relinquishing them, letting them remain where they are, but taking the essence of the essence of the essence, moving it up through Sushumna, up through the tip of the Trishula, into the non-solid reality that is the ultimate. So from the greatest amount of manifestation, which we take on and resonate with as we inhale, we release that the energy of that manifestation, the vibe of that manifestation as we exhale, and simply allow ourselves to disconnect from the five elements. Here it's good to remember that the five elements are not holding on to you. The five elements are simply available. Each one of us is holding on to the five elements because we're relying on them to do their jobs. The job of the earth element is solidity and stability. Job of the water element is making sure all the tissues are alive and making sure everything is in solution and can flow liquidly around one another. And the fire element is transforming, and the air element is invigorating, and the space element makes some things denser and some things less dense and provides the space in which circulation can occur. And as long as we're reliant on the external world for those 5 elements, we're going to be attached to the external world. So what we're trying to do is encourage the awareness not to feel that it is obligated to be connected to the external world, but in fact can find whatever it requires in the internal world, then can let all of its needs and wants simply drop away as we focus ourselves in the direction of that supreme reality which has no limits whatsoever. Another few breaths. And then while we're in this space, and you're exploring this space, we will take the advantage of the fact that there are things like mantras that we can employ even while we're visualizing something like this to promote the process. And what better mantra to employ than Om Namah Shivaya? And there's so many different rhythms and melodies that can be employed. So right for now, I propose that we use this melody. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namo. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namo. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namo. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namo. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Shivaya Namo. Om Namah Shivaya.